Hey all, it's David Ducker coming back at you. Today I'm going to be doing an RPG recap of the Battle of Jerusalem. That's right, Mike Lopez, excellent player, stepped up to the plate, ran a one-shot for us some time ago, and it was a historical one-shot, which is a wonderful idea, an idea I've never been a part of before, and it was entertaining. It was probably more entertaining for that gimmick than the actual execution. The execution was fine. It wasn't amazing. Um, but let's bring it off. So my character was Sheik from the Valley of Elah, and he was summoned to defend Jerusalem from the Crusader armies. 1066, the First Crusade. Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond of Toulouse are coming in to invade and sack Jerusalem, and we also had Charles playing a Berber slave, I believe, and James was playing as James. He was playing an atheist slave boy, shepherd boy, very odd character. Didn't fit in with the setting, which is real world history. Didn't fit in with real world history. So those were our three players. My character was really interesting. He was like Sheikh Shada Ibn Mara, something like that. Really fun character. I based him on the Iron Sheik. He's coming in with his Shamshir Baba, and I had a little slave boy, and I had the big curled mustache, and he was all fat and old, and his turban going on, and I'd berate my slave boy because he was Zoroastrian, and I said, if only you'd convert to Islam, then I would free you as the true people cannot enslave each other. But you don't. You stand up for Zoroaster. Pooey! And I spit on the ground. So it's kind of the stereotype, a comedic character. But it was interesting to get that across that, if he'd convert to my religion, I would have had to free him. But since he was so pious towards Zoroaster, he was a slave, and I'd berate him about it. Really fun, comedic, light character, but it's at least somewhat fitting with real world history. Excuse me, unlike James's character, who was just James. But the Crusaders were coming. They had besieged the city, and we're preparing our defenses. The Marshal of Jerusalem, and I'm so sorry I can't remember his name. I didn't look it up. This was a while ago that Mike ran it for us. Go hit up Wikipedia, and you can find the Marshal of Jerusalem for the Battle of Jerusalem, 1066. It'll be an easily located historical fact. You can see I didn't do any research for this video, but Mike did prepping the session, which was awesome. But the Marshal had disappeared, so Charles went looking for him. I stayed on the wall with James and prepared the defense. So Mike ran Charles through this detective kind of mystery, tracking him down, while myself and James defended the wall and the city. And we I know a little bit about real world battle tactics in a siege, so I got to employ some of that, which was fun. It was a really good idea, and the execution wasn't terrible. Eventually, Charles found out that the Marshal of Jerusalem was selling out the city, and he was fleeing through an underground tunnel. And so Charles ended up killing him and possibly capturing Godfrey of Bouillon. Meanwhile, up at the battle, I successfully repelled the Crusaders, changing the course of history, which was really fun, really interesting. So watch the Crusaders head back out into the desert. Because I knew about the Battle of Jerusalem. I knew we were supposed to lose, but we rolled it, son, and we came out on top. That's right. So I mean that was a campaign in a nutshell. Basically, I was doing mass combat rules, leading troops. James was firing his bow into these mass combat, and Charles was doing a murder, not a murder mystery, but a mystery. He was tracking down the missing marshal. So, and it wasn't poorly executed at any one point, I wouldn't say, but it was very fragmentary. The party was never together except at the very start. And even though James and I were somewhat together, we were completely different power levels. I was leading hundreds of troops. He was firing 2 arrows per round, you know. So, you know, I'm sure I don't want to talk smack about Mike. Mike's a great GM. He had a great idea making a historical campaign, but some of his prep and his execution were not what I would have done. You know, I would try to keep everybody on the same level. So if I'm leading troops, everybody else should also be leading troops. Or if James is not leading troops, nobody should be leading troops. We should be on the same power level, ideally, especially for a one-shot. You can get away with other stuff in a longer campaign, but for a one-shot, you want to keep everybody on the same power level, and you want to keep everybody together. So, you know, if Charles is going off on a mystery, we should have been going with him. Or if we're defending the walls, Charles should have stayed with us. Either way, you know, just to keep that group together so we can roleplay with each other. And so Mike doesn't have to divide his attention as GM. So he can really focus on one storyline, because he's only got 4 hours to get this done, right? So if you divide your attention, each storyline is only like 2 hours now. It's really hard to tell a good story in 4 hours, and it's like impossible to tell it in 2 hours. So, and I talked to Mike about this after the game, and I said, you know, why didn't you just railroad us? And he's like, oh, I didn't want to. Railroading is bad. You know, I wanted this to be a sandbox and an immersive, real experience. I said to him, man, you only have 4 hours. You can't do a sandbox in 4 hours. You know, you can do a railroad, though, in 4 hours. So I'm of the opinion that he should have just viciously railroaded us together so that he could have told the story he wanted to tell, the story he had prepped, the story that lasts 4 hours and not 5, because then we don't have 5 hours. So your story is 5 hours. There will be no ending. And if you know there's not going to be an ending, why would you even have a beginning? That's for me to say. But he didn't, you know, he had this negative connotation of railroad, and while the game wasn't bad by any stretch, but it did hurt the game that we were split and that we were of different power levels. So he, you know, I think it really could have benefited by some railroading, get us all on that murder mystery, because I think that's what he wanted, and then, you know, really focus in on that one element. Take your 4 hours, tell that story, and you know, it'll be a richer story for it having more characters in it, more player characters. So that's my recap of the Battle of Jerusalem, the First Crusade, when we changed history. I'd love to hear if you've run a historical session or a historical campaign, if you've reenacted something, because it was really, really fun to see, you know, Godfrey of Bouillon and Raymond of Toulouse. Our general was also a historical figure. I'm sorry I can't remember his name again, but it was really interesting. Great idea. It got my wheels spinning about other ideas and how role-playing games can be used to tell history and experience history in a different way. So that's going to be my recap of the Battle of Jerusalem. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear about it. So I'm going to sign out now. Everybody have a good day. Cheers.